Hi there. So today I wanted to show you this project I'm working on, which is called Misheel, and it is by Isabell Kraemer. And I am at the point where I'm finishing the second sleeve, and I have worked the ribbing, and now I'm going to fold the ribbing to the inside and attach it to the marked round. Okay, so there are lots of different ways to do this, and you could sew the hem stitch by stitch to that marked round. And what you end up getting, by the way, is this sewn hem, which looks really nice. And the way that I'm going to do it, the way that I chose to do it for the collar here, and that I'm going to use for the sweater, is I'm going to do a 3-needle bind off to attach the live stitches at the bottom of my ribbing to the marked round. And so the first thing you want to do is, it's nice to mark that round, because I'm going to now take a smaller needle and just go through these stitches and pick them up along the inside there. So it gives me a nice line. This thread gives me a nice line, exact stitches where I should pick them up. I'm going to go around and do that. And then I'm going to use this small needle. This is a 12-inch circular needle, and my ribbing was done on a size 6 needle, and this needle is a size 3. You can use a size 6 if you want, or anything smaller. You're basically just picking up these stitches so that they're on the needle, and I find that using a smaller needle is easier. Make sure you don't get any of that scrap yarn in there as you're going around. I'm going to continue around and pick up all these stitches. So that I can use the live stitches at the bottom of the hem and do a 3-needle bind off, with this being my second needle. And the other good thing about marking these stitches with that contrasting color yarn, or that contrasting yarn, is that, as I said, it's very easy to get the exact stitch in the exact place with the exact number of stitches. Because sometimes when I've done this before and I've kind of just eyeballed it, I can find that I can get a stitch or two off, and then the hem doesn't line up exactly. So this way you end up with exactly the right number of stitches in the right place. And I've got a couple more here, taking it all the way around. And I usually leave that yarn still in there when I'm doing this, and then take it out when it's all over, just in case you end up making a mistake and you need to go back, pull it out, and you need to find all the stitches again. So I'm just going to keep that contrasting color yarn in there until I get them all bound off. Okay, so now I've picked up all those stitches on this smaller needle. And you don't necessarily need a 12-inch needle for this. I just find that it's kind of easier because they're all right there, and it's smaller and it's a little bit less bulky. Same thing goes for this one. I used a 32-inch needle to do the cuffs, but you can use whatever size needle you use, double pointeds, whatever. So anyhow, what you're going to do is you're now going to fold this together, and you're going to get a third needle. So you have your original needle, you've got your second needle where you picked up those stitches, And now the third needle. And this is where I think the tricky part comes in. I've done some 3-needle bind-offs on the necklines before like this, where I ultimately bind them off the same way as I would like a hem at the bottom of my sweater or something. And sometimes I found that it's just too tight. So when I say to bind this off loosely, I'm going to show you how I bind that off. So you're going to go into the first stitch on each of the 2 needles, okay? And then getting your other needles out of the way. This is coming from here, this yarn. You're going to just knit both of those off the needle. And however that works best for you. Sometimes you can take them one at a time. But you're going to want to take that off with a lot of slack. Okay, see how much slack I have there? I'm going to go into the second one and also give it a decent amount of slack. Take those off the needles. And then when I bind it off, when I do the actual bind off part, I also give myself quite a lot of room. And then I continue on in that fashion all the way around. Again, giving myself a lot of room with that. Taking those off carefully. You can see how much space I have there and pulling that out. Because what you're going to find, at least what I have found, is that really what you're doing is you're trying to tack down the 2 parts together as opposed to making a nice tight, a tight bind off. You want to keep it somewhat loose because if you're like me, I don't like when my hems are too tight and constricting. Pull both of them off and again, pass it over, making sure to give myself lots of slack. To show you one more time there, and then I'm going to show you again what it looks like on my other cuff. Make sure you're not going into that scrap yarn. And sometimes I find it easier just to take one off at a time. So take the back one off, and then the front one off. Again, giving myself a lot of room and binding that off. And what you're going to end up with as you go all the way around is a nice flexible cuff, a very neat edge on the inside. It doesn't look like it's too loose. And this is what the inside of the collar looks like. So that's just one option for sewing down the hem to the inside. And I thought I'd show you that. Hope that's helpful.